How often do we feel exhausted and overwhelmed during our vacation and travel, be it to a neighboring city, to a countryside, or to an opposite end of the world? In this video, I will talk about psychological challenges, major psychological challenges that we can encounter during our trips, and how to avoid them following simple, slow travel rules. Hey my friends, if you're new here, I'm Anna, Anastasia, and this channel is about everything that is mindful, minimalist and creative. Brian and I are still on our extended stay in Albania, and after spending 1 month in Shkodër, we arrived here, the capital of the country, Tirana. It's a bigger city with lots of things to see and to do. We are staying for 11 days here, and we don't want it to be an overwhelming experience, and thus we are sticking to our slow travel philosophy that I will share with you today. Tip number 1, don't try to see it all. Travel FOMO, or fear of missing out, is a real thing that we don't often even notice, thinking that it's our natural reaction, but it's not. Do you really want to see each and every place according to someone else's list in a given country or a city or whatever place you're going to? FOMO in itself is built on fear, and thus it promises nothing but dependence on someone else's opinion and obligation to comply. For me personally, one museum a day, one gallery a day, one sightseeing spot a day is just enough, because a travel experience needs time to get settled inside, to be fully absorbed instead of very fast and shallow consumption. Also, FOMO is closely related to such a simple human emotion as greed. Right before the pandemic, Brian and I took a trip to Portugal, and I remember how terrified I was while I was thinking of time ticking away. I kept tracking how many days are left, and instead of fully enjoying our stay with gratitude, I felt very sad and dissatisfied. And since I noticed that type of greed in me, I'm trying to be more mindful about my experience consumption, but it's still a long way to go. When Brian and I arrived here in Tirana on the first day, we were so excited and we loved it so much here that we kept saying how we don't want to go anywhere, how many places we want to see and to visit, and it felt a bit overwhelming. So we just did our best to calm our exciting minds and now just let the experience flow. Tip number 2, tame the photo craze. The obligation to take pictures often steals from real experience. In 2013, a scientific study showed that people had harder time to remember art objects that they had seen in a museum when they took pictures of them. The reason why we remember less is the so-called attention disengagement. We pose, we try to perfectly frame the object, and thus we are distracted from the whole scene. This photo was taken 2 years ago during a trip to the Altai Mountains in Russia. My cousin and I found that amazingly beautiful spot, and we decided to snap some striking shots there. And I remember how distracted I was by the whole experience of photo session, but at the same time I felt the need to kind of absorb the energy of the place. And as soon as we took that picture that you can see, I asked my cousin to leave me alone for 5 minutes, so I just sat there and watched the place. And this is when the magic happened, the magic of the unframed moment. Of course, it is almost impossible to completely stop taking pictures and videos with our digitized lives. I'm a content creator and this is what I do for a living, but it's always good to try to minimize it and also test alternatives such as sketching and writing short stories about what you saw. I'm not good at sketching, honestly, but I find the practice of writing experiences down a wonderful way to deepen the impression and also to develop creative skills. Tip number 3, embrace what you really deserve. When traveling, many people tend to overspend money on top-notch experiences because of the implanted idea that they deserve it. Of course, vacation is a getaway from everyday life, but does it necessarily have to be a jump over one's head? Think of what you really deserve, an expensive and not necessarily enjoyable something, or happiness and inner balance. So do whatever takes you there. For example, Brian and I don't like posh places because we are more into simplicity and authenticity. We adore grocery shopping in our travel destinations and also cooking with local ingredients. One of my most cherished travel memories is the picnic that we had in Lisbon Park. We had a Tupperware with us filled with smoked tofu that we found on a local Chinese market, and tomatoes, bread, olives, and we just sat on the bench, snacked, and enjoyed the quietness of the moment. Tip number 4, ditch expectations. Another pressure that we may feel when traveling is the obligation to feel different or to look transformed when we come back and share impressions of our trip with other people. Sometimes travels are just travels and all the insights can be very subtle, as well as our tan, it can be very, very subtle. My first trip abroad happened almost 15 years ago when I was 25. My father and I went to Israel, and when I came back and shared my experience, my colleagues kept asking why I looked so pale, like fair skin, because they expected me to be super tanned as we spent time on the Mediterranean coast. And I was feeling kind of embarrassed and like I failed to embrace the whole travel transformation thing. There is a stereotypical image of a happy, perfect traveler that many of us cannot conform to, so just let yourself be. For many people, a perfect vacation results in gaining inner balance and quietness back with no striking revelations or transformations, and it's perfectly normal. Tip number 5, follow your own list. When traveling, we often feel pressure to follow all the valuable recommendations from other people, but we are all different, and what one likes will not necessarily make you happy. So, of course, recommendations and reviews are very important because they help us save money, time, and nerves, but it's also very essential to allow yourself follow your own intuition and preferences. We are often afraid to seem rude if we don't take other people's advice, and I'm like that too. I have a lot of people pleaser traits in me, but the more we embrace our own needs, the more fulfilled our trip and our vacation can be. For example, I don't like guided tours. For me, it's much more comfortable to find information about a certain place online or in books and then go see it on my own. When I first arrived to Serbia and was still waiting for Brian to join me, my first Airbnb host highly recommended that I should take a free walking tour around the city. On the next day, she texted me and asked how it went, and I felt a bit embarrassed because I didn't go. Probably it would be a great experience. It just at that time I did what felt right for me at the moment. I just needed time to settle in a new place and to explore just my neighborhood instead of embracing the whole city. So these are the 5 slow travel tips that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for watching the video till the end, my friends. Feel free to share in the comments what you think, what is the way that you like to travel, whether you experienced being exhausted and frustrated after your vacation and why. And for now, be safe and keep your heart open. And I hope to see you soon. Пока-пока.